So here's how I made the little ARP in this hyperpop beat, which is this sound right here. So first I opened up Serum, picked out a square wave table, and then turned on mono and always in the voicing tab in portamento mode. And what that does is give me kind of like this little interesting chiptune-y square type sound, where two special things are happening. First of all, it's bending between every single new note that gets pressed, which is what the portamento always does. And then it also isn't ever playing two notes at the same time. So anytime I press a second note, like right here and right here, it just bends between the next note. And by not having legato on, it also means that this little LFO is not going to re-trigger. So next, let's talk about the LFO. I drew like a pluck shape that's really sharp here and then turned envelope mode on, which means it's going to re-trigger every time a new note gets pressed. And then BPM sync being on just means that my rate can be set to 1/8 note, which is kind of what most of my notes are here. They're 1/8 in length. Then I use that to modulate the level. And that kind of gives me like a little square poppy type sound. Then I turned on filter 1 and used LFO 1 to modulate it too. So kind of plucking this low pass 12 filter here. And then I went into the effects and added two different effects that give width. So the flanger first and then a chorus, and just kind of dialed these settings in. I'm not going to kind of get too deep into those, but just set those however makes the sound nice for you. So just kind of like fun, a little bit of width, not too much though, where it's completely washed out, but like just a decent amount of width there. So then after that, I routed it into a mixer track and I did a couple things post effects wise. So the first thing that I added here is just a EQ that just basically takes like some low mid off of it and also rolls off the low end. So makes it a little brighter by reducing the amount of low end that's getting sent into my next effect, which is a compressor with upwards compression. So I'm going to be really short with this, but basically what this does is anytime the threshold gets passed by the gain here, it does upwards instead of downwards compression. So downwards compression would make it quieter whenever the threshold gets passed, but this is upwards. So that means that the little green line that you can kind of see after is what's getting added to the gain. I also set pretty long attack or moderately long attack and release on this, which just means that it's not going to initially like trigger as soon as the sound happens. So just a little bit gentler of a compression. The next thing that I did was I took my little ARP channel and routed it into a send track. And what this does is basically allows me, so if I turn it off here, this will just be the send that's playing. So what I added to this was a snap heap. And all that I did here was take it and turn the mid down. So bringing my little stereo thing back in, I removed the mids from this. So now I can kind of just work on the stereo. And the only thing that I did here was did distortion on it. So that kind of just gives me like a width send that I can mix in and kind of make my entire sound brighter and more wide. Then I just dialed that into where it sounded good. The last thing that I did here was also send it to a separate send that has a fruity delay 3, which is set to delay ping pong mode, which means it bounces left and right like the delay signal does. And then I set that to be 2 beats, or yeah, 2 beats long. Is it 2 beats? Whatever it is, it's set to the little 2 right here. I think that's 2 beats. And then I added a fruity send after that. And what that lets me do is I can set this mixer track thing, the mixer volume, to where I want it, and then I can automate the dry in to kind of help me do these little sweeps that I have like right here. This is the send delay on that. So I'll kind of show what that does starting from halfway through. So in context with my track, that just kind of helps me to like let this rise in to my little drop here. So then I also have this secondary automation on the ARP, which is this little filter flick thing. And what that does is basically I can go in here. If I go to the matrix tab, I can set one of my macros. So I'll turn this off. So you can go in here and pick an auxiliary source. So I have macro 1 set to be my auxiliary here. And what that does is it means now that whenever I turn this knob, it's going to decide how much this particular filter automation happens. So I'll kind of play my track and you can get an idea of how this works. So it just lets me fade in this pluck at any like rate that I want to do, which kind of helps with like building and reducing energy in different parts of your track. Then the last thing I did was just a couple little songwriting things. So I went in here and removed the last couple notes of each of these sections of the ARP in the A half of the drop, so not like the punk rock half, but the first half. And that just kind of helps it work better with what's going on with the guitar right here. Then also in the second half, the punk half, I bring these pieces back in, which just helps this be like the most full and energetic section of the track. And so that's going to do it for this one, y'all. I'm kind of experimenting with really short focused tutorials so they're a little more digestible. If you want to see the rest of the tutorials that go along with this project, click the video on the top right and they'll be in the description of that video. I'm doing one on the drums, I'm doing one on the vocals, I'm doing one on the effects, I'm doing one on the guitar, which is like just a flex patch or two. You can find those in the description of that video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.